to talk today a little bit about something that I know a lot of you ask about and are discussing online. And, it has become in vogue for folks in the online world, especially with really well-known folks like Elon Musk contributing to this kind of behavior, and Donald Trump being one of the greatest advocates for online fighting. I I think today I want to talk about when it is useful to engage and when it is not. Um, and I say that because, we're not in a campaign right now. We're not in a presidential campaign, I should say. There are plenty of campaigns out there. And simultaneously, there are union efforts all over. And there are fights happening offline that are very real, which we'll be discussing today, like the anti-union efforts that are being pushed, the union busting efforts on Starbucks workers and workers who are organizing all over the country. That's nothing new. It's just happening in a much more aggressive and open way. But something has happened. I don't know. Maybe it's because the presidential race is over, and maybe it's because media is just becoming more and more concentrated and controlled. Maybe it's because the algorithms are just becoming more and more distorted. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If they're built a certain way, it's going to exponentially just exacerbate whatever inequalities or distribution of voices are being heard, and the diversity of voices being heard. But I want to talk about like when it is useful to engage. I did an exercise, and I encourage folks to do this if you're an introspective kind of person. I did an exercise where I was just reflecting on, the last decade of my life. Um, since I was 28, what have I done, accomplished? What were my goals? What did I miss? What's been on my list that I haven't really tried to focus on? And there's a lot on both sides. I moved to New York over a decade ago at this point, and my goal was to get engaged in political media and more activism. I felt at that time there were not a lot of left voices in the media, and I was working and organizing and advocacy, and it didn't feel like there was representation of especially millennials. And somehow I found my way into media. It was hard work. It was a very, dog eat dog world. It's New York media world. And that happened. But it was never like my end goal. And I say that because I sometimes wonder why certain folks are in the media. Are you there to help spread something that's really, as a spokesperson for a fight? And sometimes you do have to go head to head with bad guys like, oligarchs and Republicans. Sometimes it's not useful to do that, especially if your voice is not going to be heard by the right people. Sometimes, I just wonder why people are in there. Are you in it for the ego, for the money? Because if you're in it for the ego, you're going to change your values left and right. And when are you being constructive? I think that there's a group of people in the online independent media space, some of whom came from establishment media and were essentially pushed out because they were too independent and left, or non-corporate is another way of saying it. Some are still kind of in both spaces and trying to balance them. And then there's a lot of people who just took a risk and went fully online, like Cenk Uygur, and his story, if you haven't seen the documentary on him, is pretty powerful. And we forget. I think a lot of people have short-term memories and forget that just a couple of years ago, this space was nowhere near what it is now. And because it's so strong and because the left movement is growing, there are more folks who are focused on either capitalizing off of it and or dividing it. And those two things can be true at the same time, whether it's intentionally divide or unintentionally divide. So I know there's a group of people who are using this platform because they really believe in the issues that they're fighting for, and they want to educate and platform more folks who don't have a voice. Otherwise, they would just be at MSNBC or CNN or Fox News or working on the Trump campaign even. We've seen a lot of folks go full circle. But I ask you as like viewers to also, when you watch folks, say like, why are they doing it? Are they doing it for the money? Are they doing it for the fame? Is it the short term, the adrenaline? Is it something much more nefarious? I mean, all these things can be true too. I know I'm doing this. I mean, if it was for the money, I wouldn't be doing it right now. I'll tell you that. I've been in really interesting, media landscapes, and I've seen when people suddenly turn from doing it for advocacy to doing it for fame and turn on their values. I spend most of my day organizing. I know you guys see me online here and you don't see what's happening behind the scenes, but I spend most of my day organizing. I work with, working women who are running for office and helping them get their campaigns up and off the ground. I am working on a documentary in Puerto Rico, as many of you know, that takes on capitalism and money laundering and really the dynamics between folks trying to make money off the island and simultaneously displacing people from the island who've lived there their whole lives, and the colonial relationship Puerto Rico has with the United States. I organize my community. I attend events. I try to do my best with the time I have on this planet. But I do sit here and wonder sometimes how much of the online space is just noise. And the way that these tech companies have incentivized us to engage in that noise, to feel the adrenaline hit of a like, of a retweet, whether it's even real, engaging in fights with people, whether they're even real. There's an addiction, there's an adrenaline, and sometimes there's a negative consequence to it. There's smearing, there's attacks. Women and people of color are attacked way more online than I think folks are even aware, and that takes a toll on you after a while. By design, maybe not. Maybe it's just the algorithm, perpetuating it because a certain group of folks have always had an upper hand, and that inequality just stretches. And we saw what happened with Gamergate. I mean, Gamergate was some of the origins of this, and Gamergate, Steve Bannon, I know I talk about him a lot, was a big part of using that as a model to push Trump's ideas, which are built off of misogyny and racism. So I talk about this today because, I sometimes open up my Twitter and I wonder, like, what planet are we on? Because if you are actually organizing on the ground, sometimes this stuff does overlap, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes folks who are organizing on the ground think that they need to be in the media online, but really, like, a lot of the media online is pushed by bots. I mean, seriously. Elon Musk, was a story about Elon Musk today or the other day about how much of his online empire was boosted by bots. I know I had bots boosting me that I didn't even know until they turned on me because I didn't side with their, pro-Russia stances. I have no doubt that they probably supported some of the things about the Democratic Party when I was fighting them to reform them. So I guess the question I just want to leave you with today is how much of this is productive and how much of it is not. I am so grateful to our audience who has stuck with us throughout this entire process and believes in the work of those we put on air and the topics we talk about, how to get there and how to organize and how to turn this conversation into real life work. Because at the end of the day, we just have to organize. That's it. We just have to real life organize. Media can be a tool, but it is not the end goal in my mind. So I am really grateful to everybody. I've been thinking about this a lot the last few days, especially since Elon Musk has talked about taking over Twitter and reforming it. But I don't even know what that means. Like, what does that mean? Getting more right-wing voices on there, not shutting down his bot accounts. I really have no idea. And these are the kinds of public conversations we need to have because so much of our public conversation is being driven by things that we do not have information about. We do not have access to the algorithm. It is not transparent. A bunch of people trying to make money off of public discourse are dictating the terms of our public discourse. Simultaneously, they're pushing certain items. We know about, shadow ban. Bella Hadid posted on Instagram today that she's been shadow banned when she was talking about Palestine. This is beyond crisis at this point. And I think, for all of us just to sit here and think to ourselves, keep supporting independent media, keep supporting in whatever way you can. because that's really how we break through the noise and, of course, keep organizing on the ground. We are really grateful to have a great community on Patreon who loves and appreciates the work that we're doing, the guests that we have on the show, and we love them right back. If you are not already a patron, please join us on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. You can also get some swag, some merch on there as well. We're also doing a big Q&A right now. Patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. And if you're not already, please subscribe. Every single podcast platform out there we are on now.